Okay, let's get into it. Now, this is all being recorded on one phone, so I'm not going to expect any prizes for the quality of this video. It's the content within that I hope is valuable. So, with no more ado, let's start looking at how we're going to build our sidecar. Now, I mentioned in the introduction video that this next sidecar is going to be built for the CT110 rather than the NBC110, and it's going to be built to fit these boxes in because it's a good strong box. It's not super strong, but overly strong usually means overly heavy. Look at aircraft, you know, they need to have a little bit of give in them, otherwise they'd be too heavy to get off the ground. So I think that this is strong enough, and anyway, we're going to be putting a steel cage around it to support it and the load within it. This is pretty much just to keep the contents within the confines of the sidecar cage, and it's been done because my first customer, Debbie, has an old dog, and she wants her old dog to be able to get in and out of the sidecar, and then she wants to be able to probably not put it inside, but remove the box and put a complete box in and go and get a shopping. So no drawings. I am going to make some measurements, but no drawing as such, because we're talking generally anyway. You make your sidecar whatever size you want. If you've got a different size box, if you're watching in America and you can't get hold of these, I'm sure you can get one your size. So just adjust the size accordingly. If you wanted to, you could make it longer, like that one there is longer. You could even put a backrest on it and put a person that you don't like and want to kill in it. I wouldn't recommend it, I really wouldn't, but that's up to you. Your choice. Okay, so I'm going to go and get a piece of paper and I'm going to start taking some measurements. We'll do it at 670 long, okay? So 670 long. I'm going to have to edit this because I think this is just going to be just dull as dishwater if I don't, so alright, fair enough, I will edit some of this or speed it up or something. 41 wide or 410. Okay, so here's the tube, square box section, and it is, it should be 25 mil. Just going to check. Yep, so this is 25 mil box section, and this has got a 2 millimeter wall. This is heavier than the tube I made this sidecar out of, but that's okay because a little bit of weight is good anyway. Now, the other reason that I've gone for box this time rather than the tube that I did in that one is that that's got nice big radius curves to go around a person when I thought that it might be suitable for a person. This sidecar cage isn't going round big nice radius curves. This sidecar cage is going round tight radius curves. Now I'm still not just going to miter it, you know, just cut it out of, you know, just cut 45 degree and weld them together and have a weld on each corner. I do still want a bit of a radius, and that's just because I want to make it look as good as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this. I'm going to not bend it, but I'm going to cut 45 degrees out of it, but not all the way through. So it's only going to be 45 degree cut to about there, and then I shall bend it and bend it and bend it round so that I've got my rectangle. But the outside will be, the outside face will only have one join in it where it joins together. And I will probably cut to maybe 3 mil, 4 mil, perhaps to the top of the curve. The edges, the corners of this are sort of rounded, so I should probably have it so that the radius on the corner matches that as far as possible. So we've got 670 for one side, 670 for the other side, plus 410 for the end, plus 410 for the end. So we need a total length of 2 meters 160. 2,160. So I'm just checking that we'll get it out of this length anyway. 2,160. Okay. So there's the length. I'll show you the calculations and the markings. Okay. That is half of a long length because it's a rectangle. Okay. So that's half of a long length. So I'm going to put, actually let's put half, we'll call it 0.5 L. Hopefully that makes sense. Half a long length. This is 410. So this is an end. This is 67. So this is a length, the long bit. This is 410. So that is an end. And this is half of the length. So again, we're going to put that as 0.5 L. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. Okay. Now you can see that they are mitered. So that is to say that the dimensions that I measured on the box were the inside measurement of the frame. Okay, so that, let's look at the end here. That is 410, but that's from there to there. Okay, so we've got this extra bit, but that's the corner. Now, just so I can keep track of things, that's going to get cut out. That's going to get cut out. As is that. As is that. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to cut those corners out. I shall mark them all the way round. So, for example, just because, like I say, I trained as a carpenter, I shall mark those marks over to the top. I'll transfer them over the top with my trusty square. Actually, I'll do that and then show you. All right. There you go. Hopefully that should really be starting to make some sense now. See? So we'll cut those out and we'll fold it up into a rectangle with the interior dimensions of this rectangle that we're making will match the exterior dimensions of this box. Okay, now don't be too surprised. I actually don't want to cut this with an angle grinder. Yes, I've got dozens of angle grinders. Yes, I've got a drop saw. I haven't got a bandsaw, but I'm more than happy to do this. This is a skill that I got when I was 16, straight from school. Instead of going on and doing anything worthwhile with my life, I learned how to use my hands. And I've never stopped using them, and I can still use a file, and I can still use a saw. I was going to say, I can still use a hoe. Well, let's not rule it out. And I actually like the idea of making something with my hands. So I cut and I file mostly by hand. It's for noise and all sorts of reasons. It's just how I prefer it. You can cut it how you want. You can cut it however you like, but I don't have a problem with how quick that is, and I don't have a problem with the finish of it. Hook it up. Okay, so I've done all the cuts facing that way. And what on that, and you can see it's sort of bending a little bit more at each and every cut, and that's okay. And now I'm going to turn it round in the vise and cut all my cuts going the same way because I'm right-handed. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to flip the work round because I can only cut with my right hand, and that just seems comfortable. And I always find that the most comfortable way to cut is usually the most accurate. Okay, a little bit of a sweat on, not too much, but hopefully you can see what I mean about my shallow radius bending technique. I'm going to tidy these up with a file. Probably don't need to. Welding is ever so forgiving, you know, find a bit of a gap, put a bit of weld in it, that's okay. And flap it all off at the end and it all looks good. But I like to do it as neat as I can at each and every stage. I don't know, just the way I do it. All right, I'm going to tidy these up and then put it on the floor and then bend it into a rectangle that hopefully should fit around one of these boxes. Okay, right then, here we go. Half the long length. An end. Long length, another end, and when tightened up. Okay, quick couple of seconds showing how I corrected my joints that weren't quite 90 degrees. You saw me bend this up and they just didn't pull tight. Now I said I was going to smack it with a hammer. Don't take me literally when I say I'm going to do that. I very rarely smack things with a hammer. And it wouldn't have done any good anyway. What I did instead was put a bit of tension on the parallel sides and run a saw blade down the joint in the corner, taking off a tiny amount, not going all the way through, until... So I've just ran the saw from there down to there until it was square or beyond square, and I could just pop it a bit back out. So these are all now capable of going perfectly square. So now I can cut this length off there and finish the rectangle. Get those two to join up there. Like so. Now, I don't use bungee cords or hockey straps, whatever you call them in your neck of the world, as welding clamps. They are just there to stop it springing back naturally under its own elasticness of the metal. Now the other thing I forgot to mention, if you cut your own and you find, like I did, that it wasn't quite square and you had to adjust it, there's only a certain amount of time that you can bend mild steel by hand. So you can't bend it straight, file a bit off, then bend it back again, then find it's not right and bend it out and file another bit off, because before too long it's going to break. It'll just break off and there'll be a problem then. So that's one of the reasons that I bent the whole thing together and didn't unbend it. So this is still from the very first time I bent it into a rectangle. I just laid it down on the floor to just check the boxing again, and I've realised that my end markings make a lot more sense now. End, remember the E? And 0.5 length, 0.5 length, make the full length. There's the other E, and there's the L. So hopefully those markings that I made right at the start make more sense. All right. I'm not going to be in shot for this one, I'm going to be behind the camera. Okay, I didn't film the step of welding it because I don't know what it was going to do anyway, and all you'd see was the back of my head, a lot of smoke and a lot of very bright lights, which probably wouldn't be that interesting if you're finding the rest of it interesting. They're not bad. Let's see if I can find a good weld. Ooh, look at that. It looks better out face. Anyway, I'm not overly fussed. It's square. Hang on. It's rectangular. But that is to say that the edges are, the corners are 90 degrees, so that's all good. And the welds are all strong, so that's all good. I am going to hit it with what's known as a soft pad, which is your friend when you're a welder, if you're not a good one anyway. And it just will take some of them down a little bit and smooth them over a bit without taking too much strength out the thing. But it's got a good penetration on the weld anyway. I've got a fairly cheap setup. It is Argo shielded, so it's one step up from the gasless flux core welding, which I used to do with the same machine. Now you see why we couldn't have the large radius corners that we did on the other one, because these tighter corners need to fit round the box, and we'll put an upper cage on it, an upper rail on it next.